Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, Democrats.
Good evening, Democrats.
Room only Isabel responded.
Well, John, you muted us.
We're gonna try. Okay, now everybody on Zoom can unmute. Everybody in person, grab their seat. Let's try again. Good evening, Democrats.
Good evening, Democrats.
All right, welcome to everybody in here, out there. Lots to get to tonight. But first, let's have a show of hands. Has everybody here already voted in the March primary? Okay, we've got some, I'm going to turn it around so everyone here can see. We've got a lot of hands up. We've got a couple of hands up on the Zoom. All right, Naomi voted, Annalisa voted, looks like Natalia voted. Okay, we should be good to win our primaries just based on that turnout. Okay, so that being said, though, if for those who are tracking this kind of thing, the turnout so far has been really low, lower than most primaries in recent years. So we need everyone here not only to vote, but to remind everyone you know about the importance of the election. George Gascon, Adam Schiff especially need our votes in the primary if they're going to advance the general election. Make sure you vote by Tuesday. I think everyone here knows already about the vote by mail and the voting centers and all of this. It's GOTV weekend this weekend. That means that the California Democratic Party is having events all around the state, including one right now on Zoom. They're counter-programming again. First, the Republican debate counter-programmed us. Now the state party is I can't believe they wouldn't check with me first, but it's fine. They're doing their rally. We have ourselves here. Speaking of the California Democratic Party, I wanted to recognize our regional director, Henry Montalvo, is here. He came all the way here from Thousand Oaks. That deserves a nice big round of applause, I think. So everyone get a chance to meet him if you can. He's been great so far. We're lucky to have him. On Monday evening, our endorsed candidate for Senate, Adam Schiff, is having a last-minute GOTV event in Burbank. And his team specifically invited the members of the Santa Monica Democratic Club to attend the event tomorrow morning. And the email blast with the link to this meeting will include the link to attend that event. We've already started. We're having GOTV opportunities listed in our emails already for some of the various campaigns. Stay tuned for more of that after the primary, including the Justice for Renters Act, which this club already endorsed for our fall campaign ballot measure. Bit of personal news, I just started working with the campaign this week, so we're going to have lots of opportunities. Thank you. Yeah, we're going to pass it this time. Third time's the charm. I went to the meeting this week. There was already several Santa Monica Democratic Club members on the team, many people here who we know, and we're excited to continue doing events with that campaign and the other endorsed campaigns. Okay, I'm going to announce our next meeting month from now, March 27th, here in this room. We're going to have Senator Ben Allen for a Q&A. If you've got questions for Senator Allen, you can submit them with the RSVP form for next month's meeting, or just email us, smdemocrats@gmail.com. All you have to do is email that address and we'll add it into the Q&A. Also wanted to let everyone here know, we unfortunately had a cancellation tonight from one of our expected guests, Senator Bradford's legislative director, who was going to be here to talk about pretext stops. And so unfortunately, that means that discussion is not going to be happening this month. Of course, I was really looking forward to that, as a lot of our members were. So hopefully we'll have the chance to get that rescheduled. But we still have a great panel tonight on mobility, moderated by Santa Monica Councilmember Jesse Zwick, coming up. But first, we have some important club business to take care of, starting with our annual executive board election. So the process to become a candidate for our board election is explicitly stated in our bylaws. We announced the date of the election 45 days ago, and then anyone interested in running for the board had to announce themselves to the board no later than 30 days ago. We put out the notice about the election. We heard back from 3 new prospective board members who were interested in joining the team. That worked out, as we had 3 openings to fill on the board. So there's 12 candidates running for 12 spots. I don't think it's going to be particularly suspenseful what the outcome is tonight, but we still obviously have to have the election, and we want, of course, to have the memberships buy-in in that team. So now we're going to hear from each candidate for the 2024 board for 1 minute each, starting with me. And somebody want to keep time?
I'll do it, Joe.
Okay, Derek's got time. All right, I'll just get started. So I'm John Katz. I'm the president of the club. I've been the president since 2017, running for another year because this is such an important election year. Last month, I did it more as a rah-rah, cheering for how we're going to win. But this month is more serious tone because we have one of the most important elections of our entire lifetime this fall. At the national level, we have Joe Biden, who has been the most progressive president in my lifetime. And he's running against Donald Trump, who the less said about, the better. And if he were to win, it would tell the world that Americans prefer that type of governance to the one we have now. Meanwhile, at the local level, we have an important race for district attorney, which we're all behind George Gascon, and we have the city council race, which is equally as important as what's going on the national level for the state of our city. We're going to lead this club to have victories on all levels this year. Thank you so much. And next up, we're going to hear from our candidate for the Vice President of Political Action, Derek Devermont. Okay, great. I heard a couple of alarms going off, so you may have, okay. Okay, great. Just try to be in.
Oh, got it. All right. Thank you, everyone. Nice to see you all. My name's Derek Devermont. I'm running for Vice President of Political Action. I've been on the Santa Monica board for a number of years now. I've been on the Westside Democratic Headquarters, where we will be working to re-elect the president for quite a few years now, and I'm on the DNC, and I'm an officer within the DNC. I very much love your vote, and let's get everyone elected. I do want to point out that one of Santa Monica's finest is here. Lieutenant Erica Nkulfi is here. Everybody give her a round of applause. Thank you all. Nice to see you. Hope to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Derek. And next up, we'll be hearing from our Vice President of Membership, Mike Soloff.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone.
Try to be,
Sorry. There we go. Good evening, everyone. I think most, if not all of you know me, Mike Soloff. I've been a member of the club and on the board for at least a decade and membership vice president for the last few years. I'd like to continue in that role. It's really wonderful to check everybody's membership status and whether they can vote and figure out where they're allowed to vote and answer all your questions. But actually, I do love it because I actually get to interact with everybody in that way. And of course, then all the political work, which is even more important from that, who we endorse, who we campaign to elect, what measures we support. This club has been incredibly important in getting very important policies passed here in the city of Santa Monica that I deeply believe in. I think you all know affordable housing, renters' rights, racial justice are probably my three biggest issues, not that there aren't all of the democratic issues. And I'd love the opportunity to continue serving you in this role. Thanks. How do you like that timing?
Perfectly timed. And next up, we'll be hearing from the VP of Programs, Sam Cozzolino.
Hey y'all, I'm Sam. I'm a student journalist at New Road School, and I'm also in some organizations going against book bans and trying to get youth to vote. I'm running for VP of Programs. One of my key things is that I will try to get LaFonza Butler to the club. I was on a youth panel with her, and you might also know me from working with Jesse Zwick from the petitioning level all the way to election day. So I'm in it for the long haul and will do all I can to represent everyone here to the best of my ability. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam. Next up, our VP of Communications, Susan Shu.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me? I'm running for re-election as your VP of Communications. I am very pleased to be a member since 2017 of this club. This club has been tremendously educational for me as I try to make my idealistic ideas about federal policy and state policy come together with really solid, progressive, egalitarian local policy. I've learned so much here and from the membership and from the leadership. I'm the regional vice chair of the LA County Democratic Party. I'm involved in a lot of reproductive justice work throughout the country. And I'm professionally, before all this, I was a writer and an epidemiologist. I'm still a writer, but I'm no longer an epidemiologist. So I'm a big nerd, and now I'm a big political nerd. And I'd very much like to have your vote. I'll do my very best for you. If you have any complaints or comments about press releases or the Instagram, they go to me because that's what I do. So anyway, thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, and next up, we will hear from our new Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion, Keith Coleman.
Thanks, John. Good evening, everyone. A pleasure to see everyone here, and glad that folks made it this evening. I'm Keith Coleman, still presently the treasurer for the club, and we're in a very solid financial footing. I'm pivoting towards the diversity and inclusion position to hopefully help us all reimagine what that really is. I think we all recognize that in these times, there's a lot of challenges, whether it's related to ESG activity, obviously DEI activity, anti-wokeism, and et cetera. And I think that really is going to, and is changing how we need to move forward with our kind of policy practices and our different partnerships to sort of move progressivism forward. So hopefully we'll be able to do that, moving as we do through 2024, and hope to have your vote for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Keith. And now we will hear from the Vice President of Legislative, Isabel Story. Go that way a little bit.
Oh, this way?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
You
that's
got it. Do what you do and I'll move the camera.
Okay, great. Thanks, John. So I'm too short behind here. Thanks, everybody. I've been your legislative VP for 1 year, so I'm going for a second year. I really enjoy doing this work. When I started, we were just starting the legislative committee, and last year we were able to really build it up. We were able to vet and endorse 30 bills, follow them through the whole legislative process, writing advocacy letters, calling, and doing various things to either get them passed or to discourage bills that we didn't want passed. This year, it's going to be a busy year again. We have over 2,000 bills introduced in the state legislature. You know, how do you figure out which are the good ones? And, you know, it's something that we've learned by talking to coalition partners and legislators and so on. We have a really good committee that's been coming loyally to the meetings, taking a lot of responsibility, and we just want to keep doing this work. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Isabel. And now we'll hear from our new incoming treasurer, Luis Barrera Castañon. Derek, you'll time Luis, right?
I just put a bit sign on there.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Luis Barrera Castañon. This is my first time actually being involved in this way. I've been in nonprofit work for the last 18 years and really have worked more on the public policy implementation side of the house. I've never actually been on this side, on the political action piece. So I'm really excited about joining, bringing sort of what I've learned through my years in just working in the nonprofit sector and just hopefully helping the club and moving progressive policies forward. So really excited about this, excited about what the team has already done and seeing how I might be able to just support and continue to support the great work that's happened. So thank you all so much. Appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Luis. And now we'll hear from our recording secretary. Normally she's sitting right behind me where Luis is, but unfortunately she's working from home tonight, as they say. So our recording secretary, Natalia Zernitskaya.
And hopefully my Zoom doesn't crash since I just turned on my camera, but I figured I wanted y'all to be able to see me. Hi, I'm Natalia Zernitskaya. I've served as the recording secretary for just a year, and I would love to be able to continue serving in that role. I'm also an appointed delegate to the California Democratic Party, where I also serve on the Rules Committee. And I've been a dedicated Santa Monica community member for over a decade. And in addition to my service on the Dem Club board, I also serve on the Virginia Avenue Park Advisory Board, and Transient Occupancy Tax Advisory Committee and the Human Relations Council of Santa Monica Bay Area and a couple other things. But I would really love to continue working with the Dem Club and supporting the efforts of this wonderful club. So please vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalia. So those are our officers, and we'll now hear from our three candidates for the three at-large positions, starting with Lynn Servini.
Hi, everyone. I'm really proud to be part of this group running for the board, and I'm hoping to learn a whole lot from them. I'm passionate about many issues. I know how important it is for everyone to be involved in the political process, especially this election year. And being a board member is my way of being active and doing my part to save democracy. And because I've been a leader in my own business for 46 years, I feel I will be able to inspire and motivate club members to be actively participate in the process. We have some wonderful committees, and I know that it's in these committees that most of the hard work is done and change is made possible. So as a board member, I will encourage everyone to join one or two of them. And I'm currently a member of the legislative committee and have seen how firsthand how effective and influential we can be. So thank you. I'm a hard worker too.
Hello there.
I got your message.
Did you, you got my message?
Okay. Um, hopefully they got the message, and we'll continue hearing from our at-large candidates. Our longest serving board member on the board, Patricia Hoffman.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry that I can't be there in person tonight. I have been working on issues of social, economic, and racial justice for more than 60 years. I believe that housing, food, education, and healthcare are human rights. And I also believe that this election will be critical to democracy. And I look forward to serving another term as an at-large member of the executive committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. And now, last but certainly not least, Dolly Sloan. You do have to unmute first.
Okay. Early in life, starting as a 6-year-old, I learned the importance of getting out the vote because my father, who was an election captain with the Bronx Democratic Party, would take me along with him when he went door to door, getting out the vote with his neighbors. And I guess I got addicted because that became one of the specialties that I love to focus on. When I joined Democratic Club after Democratic Club in all the decades and all the places where I've lived, I've been very active and an officer, someone who's an organizer and a leader who delivers skills. And I've done this in New York, Florida, Indiana, New Mexico, Claremont, and Santa Monica, and I even had a chance to do it in Istanbul for a brief moment when I met some people from California. So I've been active on the executive board since early in this century, and I'd love to stay there because experience counts. Thank you, and it's wonderful to see you all tonight.
Thank you, Dolly. Okay, so thank you to all the candidates. And I just wanted to say, if anyone there's interested in joining the club leadership in the future, please reach out to me personally or email smdemocrats@gmail.com, and we will definitely take you up and let you know about opportunities to get involved with the club. Now, with that being said, is there a motion to approve the board as proposed? Jerry's got the motion. Is there a second? Dina's got the second. Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, Natalia, I'll leave it to you to count the Zooms. I'll count in person. Okay, we've got 16 in person. How are we looking online?
We have 13 raised hand, 15 raised hands, and 16 raised hands. Sorry, it keeps going up in the reaction buttons. And then we've also got 2 folks raising their hands visually. So that's 18 on Zoom. Oh,
That comes out to
wait, sorry, it keeps changing. We're at 19 hands raised and like also clapping hands. Okay.
Natalia, can you see
hands.
Sarah Roos's hand? It doesn't really show up.
Yes, Ginny, thank you.
Okay, so we've got about 35, maybe 36 votes total. Okay, everyone lower your hands.
What's the denominator, John?
Well, it'll be based on who votes. So we'll have to see how many no's there are and abstentions. Well, actually abstentions won't matter. Everybody online, lower your hands, please. I'll go through and do it. Okay. Okay, I think I got everybody. Okay, now all those, Janice raised it back out. It's okay. Okay, all those opposed? See Derek Devermont's raising his hand as opposed. Not the first time he's done something like that. I don't see any on Zoom. Okay, and you can lower your hand, Derek. And all abstentions? Okay, so it looks like it's about 36-1. So that carries the day. So thank you, everybody. Congratulations to the board. And if all the board members can come up to the front, Jerry Rubin's going to take a photo. From the Zoom. I don't know if we'll be able to attend them, but they're just if you don't worry about it, if make sure for Sam and Patricia and Dolly, just make sure your camera's turned on and we'll get you in the background. Well, they won't
And
be.
Sam, don't forget Sam.
Let's just go over here. It's I would ideally, but we don't have the three that are online. So.
Good. Oh, man.
John, there are 4 online.
Perfect. Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Natalia.
John, there are 4 people online.
I saw Natalia came up, so we're good, right? Okay.
Five,
Thank you for taking
five
the picture,
people.
Jerry.
Five.
Okay.
Got Sam?
Yep, we got Sam, we got everybody. So we've got a board. That's gonna be the board that takes us through the election this fall. So I know we're all excited to do that work with all of you and we're looking forward to some of those victories, like I mentioned earlier in my speech. Okay, so now I'm gonna turn it over to Legislative VP Isabel Story, newly reelected, to discuss a few bills we're gonna consider for endorsement. Isabel, come on up. Yeah, and you can pass it off to whoever needs to.
Oh, okay, so yes, I'm getting right to work immediately after being elected. And as I told you, we have been busy so far this year. And so we have 4 bills to present to you tonight. So the process we go through is people in the legislative committee bring bills to our attention that they think are very important that we should support. And we look into them, we discuss them, we evaluate them, then we vote. And if we recommend it, we recommend it to the board. Then the board goes through a similar process. So the bills I'm going to tell you about have been recommended by the legislative committee and are being recommended by the board. The first one is, I hate to say it, but kind of a no-brainer because we have endorsed this before. It's AB 2200, which is the new single payer bill. We've endorsed previous iterations of this. It's to bring single payer healthcare to every resident of California. It was newly introduced a few weeks ago. We think this is the strongest bill yet ever introduced on this subject. It's really learned from what we've done before, taken input from various constituencies, and we think we have the strongest bill yet and that really could pass this year. You may have heard about this before, but it would bring comprehensive health care to every person in California. You may know we have a terrible healthcare system, if you can even call it a system now. We have over 3 million uninsured, millions more don't have insurance. Many people forego care because they can't afford it. And, other countries have single payer healthcare. They have better health outcomes than we do, and they don't pay as much for it. So it's really time that California stepped up and had this for everyone in California. So that's AB 2200. The next one is actually, has 2 bill names, but it's really one bill. It's 2 companion bills, one in the Senate and one in the Assembly about banning plastic bags. Oh, should I wait to the end or do we either one?
It's up to you. If you want to wait until we're about to vote, take the questions, or if you want to take the questions right now as each bill comes up.
I think if there's a question now on this one, I'll take it now. Yeah.
Right, you want to read this?
Oh, mistake. Okay.
There's not-
Okay.
But Brooke has a question.
Yes.
Could we, How does that work with the federal or with the state exchanges for Obamacare? Like, is it?
So basically, everything will be subsumed into CalCare. Oh, she wants to know how will this affect Covered California and all those health plans? Yeah, so everything will be subsumed into this plan. So, and that's one of the ways that it saves money by eliminating bureaucracy. So everything's like one big plan, and it is guaranteeing that you have at least as good, if not better, coverage than what you had before.
Premiums.
No premiums, no
Okay.
premiums, no deductibles, no copays.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, so the next one is about the plastic bags. Now, if you've been involved with this for a while, you may think, didn't we pass a plastic bag ban already? Which we did 2 years ago. But what happened is, we used to get those flimsy little plastic bags at the grocery store that were just thrown away and were littering, you know, our land and the oceans and everywhere. And so those were banned by a previous bill a few years ago. But then what the stores did is they started manufacturing plastic bags that were thicker, saying, well, these are reusable bags, but no one is reusing those bags. So it's actually making the plastic pollution worse than it was before. So Senator Ben Allen, who authored the original plastic ban has come up with this. It's basically to plug the loophole, say, no, you can't use those. Those are not reusable bags, no plastic bags, and they either have to be just a fully reusable bag or a paper bag. So there's one in the Senate and one in the Assembly that are exactly the same. SB 1053 is in the Senate, AB 2236 in the Assembly. So we're recommending those two. And the last one I'm going to tell you about, before I'm going to turn over to Lynn, and she's going to tell you about one, is a constitutional amendment, ACA 16 on environmental rights. This one is very simple. It just says the California Constitution will be amended to declare that the people have a right to clean air, water, and healthy environment. So it sounds really simple, like why do we need that in the Constitution? This is part of a movement across the country to pass green amendments in various state constitutions. So 3 states have them already. We have it in Montana, Pennsylvania, and New York. And this year they're pending in, let's see, is it 9? Yeah, 9 states, including California. This is, so there's a legal basis for, it allows for not just litigation, but people to take many different types of action to say, yes, you know, we have a constitutional right to this clean air, the water, or the healthy environment. This all got started. You might remember there was a very famous case about 2 years ago where 16 young people sued the state of Montana, saying that they had health problems and so on caused by a dirty environment. And it was violating their constitutional right to a clean environment, because at that time, Montana did have that kind of amendment, and they won in court. And so this is setting a precedent. And, you know, this can do a lot for people in general, but also disadvantaged communities who bear the brunt of pollution to also get action taken to, you know, improve the environment in their community, because they'll be able to say, yeah, we have a right to clean air, water, or environment. Okay, you have a question?
Yes, procedurally, let us say, let's take an argument, how long before you start seeing, you know, this be implemented and it takes effect?
As soon as the governor signs it, so that would be, yeah.
So it's a state thing, not a national thing.
State, yes, the state of California. Yep. Okay, we're doing this, we're gonna vote on these all the,
Right, Isabel, we also have a question on Zoom. Janet has her hand raised.
okay,
Janet, unmute yourself,
Yeah.
please.
I did. Can you hear me now?
yes.
What happens if the Supreme Court decides that the EPA regulations are no longer viable? Because they just heard a case this week about doing away with regulations.
Yeah, I can't predict how every court case is gonna go. All I can say is that this just puts it into our constitution, that people have that right. So
Right, but
could
the
have been
federal
stronger.
but the federal decision might have precedence over the state constitution.
I don't think that that case has to deal with whether we
It
have.
has to do with federal
environment.
agency regulations.
Yes, it has to do with EPA regulations, but I don't think that that is calling into question whether people have a right to a healthy environment. I think that's related, but I don't think it's exactly the same issue.
Okay, we'll see what happens.
Okay,
Thanks.
you're welcome. Okay, and Lynn has a bill that she brought to our attention. We've also approved.
Isabel, before you move on, we have another hand here from Sean James.
Okay. John?
Hey, guys. Hey, so I have a question about the clean water and clean environment, and will that include a clean ocean? You know, there seems to be a lot of spills of sewerage in the ocean, and it's a constant, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of repercussions for these facilities that are dumping sewage into our ocean. And it's really something that I'm not seeing brought any attention to.
Well, that's certainly very important. This does say water and environment, so I would count the ocean as part of that. Just to your point, the plastic bag bill that I talked about was also, that's a very important part of it, because when these bags break down, they break into microplastics, and that's what I think part of what you're referring to, which is polluting our oceans. The bags themselves, you know, get trapped in, you know, the sea life and endanger them. But then the microplastics really go everywhere. And we know they're at the bottom of the Marianas Trench up to the top of the highest mountain. Microplastics are in our blood, and they're certainly all throughout the ocean. So I know I digress a little bit to the other bills, but that actually controlling the plastic is a large part of this. But anyway, to take it back to the constitutional amendment, I would say yes, that would include the ocean.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Lynn? Thanks.
This is Assembly Bill 1810, and it was introduced by Banta and Brian, and McKinner is a co-author. Brian's office specifically asked us to endorse this bill. That's why I brought it to the committee's attention. A little background. Existing California law requires that a person who is incarcerated in state prison or any local facility, upon request and that's the key word, upon request, have access to materials for personal hygiene with regard to their menstrual and reproductive system. A number of states have corrected a flaw in that California statute by making menstrual products free to incarcerated people, but also without the need for individuals to request access from correctional officers. And this bill will make that correction. And after getting the fact sheet from Brian's office, I thought this bill is even more important than I originally thought, because it had some disturbing facts. And here's some of the facts. There are reports of correctional officers using menstrual products as tools for retaliation and coercion. In 2016, a lawsuit against the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation revealed 9 separate incidents where officers refused to give women tampons or menstrual pads when requested, in retaliation for them filing formal complaints of mistreatment in the facility. So this is not only inhumane, it is a gross abuse of power used to intimidate people into silence about mistreatment they may have in the facilities. Also, nationwide, there have been numerous reports of correctional officers leveraging menstrual products for sexual favors. According to 2019 report from the ACLU and Period Equity, incarcerated people just do not feel comfortable asking for menstrual products, even when they are free of cost, due to this fear that it will lead to coercion, humiliation, and harassment. So in summary, this is from the fact sheet. AB 1810 will bring our state closer to menstrual health equity by requiring that menstrual products are free and readily available for all women who need them while incarcerated. This will remove a dangerous and dehumanizing barrier for people who menstruate and allow them timely access to menstrual materials without leaving it to the discretion of their jailers. So I hope you vote to support it.
Okay, thank you to Isabel and Lynn. And just moving the lectern over a bit. Okay, so now we'll take a vote on whether to endorse these bills, and if anybody would like to separate any of them out for any reason, we can do that. Otherwise, we can vote for all the bills at once. So is there a motion to do either of those? Okay, I saw Craig and Dan is seconding, so all those in favor to endorse all the bills, raise your hand. And Natalia, I'll again rely on you to count online. Okay, we've got 16 in person.
I've got 20 hands raised and a 1 thumbs up, so 21 on Zoom.
Okay, it's more votes for this than for our board. That's interesting. Okay.
Only by 1.
Okay, let's lower the hands. So that's 37. Okay, and now all opposed? Nothing in the room, nothing online. Okay, any abstentions? Okay, so we've got a unanimous vote. So thank you to the legislative committee. And just a quick remark on the legislative stuff. I was talking to someone about this earlier, but the legislative committee does really great work. They're meeting almost every week to consider bills for this upcoming legislative cycle, or I should say current legislative cycle. And they've been doing great work for a couple of years now since the committee started. And so if anyone is thinking, why didn't this bill or that bill or some topic that, how come there haven't been any bills about that? What I can say is reach out to Isabel or reach out to me or the club email address. We'll get you on the mailing list. They're meeting all the time to consider more and more bills. And that's why we always have a few every month, because they're doing such great work there. So the legislative committee has the capacity to endorse as many bills as there are people on the committee who are interested in carrying those bills through the process. We don't want to make Isabel do all the work. That's not fair to her. So if you're interested, if you have a particular issue that you want to see this club take a position on, that's what you should do, is join that committee and we'll take it through the process all the way, not just to the meeting, but now that we've endorsed, the committee members are going to do the work to write letters to our legislators, to call into the committee meetings of the state legislature. And it's pretty cool. You can listen to these committee meetings and someone will say, I'm representing the Santa Monica Democratic Club when we endorse this bill. So it really matters, especially when you think about, Rick Isber and Ben Allen are our legislative representatives. And those are two people who have always said that this club was one of the main reasons that they got into office. So we have a lot of sway with both of them, and we want to keep the pressure on both of them, and Ted Lieu as well, although he tends to vote the right way without much pressure, but still we want to push them to do all the great work. So thank you to the legislative committee. And finally, before we start our panel discussion on mobility, we have a few bylaws amendments to consider, so we'll hear from the Bylaws Committee Chair, Mike Soloff. He seems surprised that I called on him. Are you ready to do it, or do you need to wait another month? Okay, we're going to push that to next month, everybody. Great news. The bylaws will wait. We'll wait until next month, so you have proper time to prepare. But if anyone's curious, it's in the emails, the link to the red line, new version of the bylaws, and there's a few changes there, but the most substantial change has to do with the way we consider resolutions. And those of you who've been following the resolution that we passed last month and over the last few months, we want to make sure actually the change has to do with making sure there are ways for members to put forward resolutions, even if there is opposition from other parts of the club. And we want to make sure that the minority always has the right to bring forward resolutions, even if there's dissent. Even if I or the rest of the board doesn't want to see that resolution forward, which was not the case with the filtration resolution, but it's easy considering how that process went. It's easy to imagine something like that happening, and we always want to make sure that the membership has the ability to bring stuff like that forward. So that will be discussed next month, and now we'll go on to the main topic of the evening. Actually, Carl, do you mind letting the folks out in the hallway know we're getting started? Our moderator's out there, I think. So mobility, that's the main topic of the evening tonight. And this has been an issue that's been coming up in Santa Monica a lot lately. It's been discussed in the city council, and there's been a number of high-profile incidents of injuries that between cars, between bicyclists, pedestrians, and other types of transportation. And so we wanted to take a deeper look at some of these issues and how they affect Santa Monica. So we're going to bring along the panel. You can see they're lining up to the side here, but I'm going to turn it over to our moderator this evening, who has been championing these issues on the city council. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Council Member Jesse Zwick. So yeah, let's just do the table. I'll move this over there.
And I'll sit at the table too.
Yeah. Unless you want to stand.
No.
Okay.
Hey everyone, I'm gonna have everyone come and sit instead of standing. I'll sit like in the middle. Fine.
That's what it's.
Thank you. Everyone, thank you for making this a part of your meeting tonight. Can you hear me? This sounds not great. Do we need it? I don't know.
Yeah, you need it.
Yeah.
We need it. Okay. I'm Jesse Zwick. I'm on the Santa Monica City Council. If you don't know me, it's good to see many people who I do know. Mobility. I'm not, instead of introducing everyone, I'm just going to give each person a chance to quickly go around, just introduce yourself briefly. Everyone here is an expert or an activist or otherwise very passionate about the topic of mobility, and I'm gonna have a lot to learn, and I think you guys will all too. So I'm gonna go down the line and just ask each person quickly to introduce yourselves, just like 1 to 2 sentence kind of introduction, and then tell me, I guess briefly, why we should care about this topic. And then I know that sounds trite, but I think it's important to address because, I hear from a lot of people sometimes who say, LA is a car city, it always will be. Why are we wasting public resources looking at alternate modes of transportation? And I think that's wrong, but I'm curious to hear the answers from everyone on this panel just quickly about why they think this is a really important issue to engage with after saying a little bit about themselves. So we can start down here with Jack.
First of all.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jackie Swartz. I'm a senior transportation planner with the City of Santa Monica. I'm very passionate about this work. It's important because we can save lives, number one, but also we live in one of the greatest places to do this kind of work and get outside and be active and ride our bikes and walk. And it can just bring a lot of joy.
I'm Michael Schneider. I was born and raised in Santa Monica, not currently not born and raised. I was born in Santa Monica. It's not really Santa Monica. Not currently a resident, but come here often. I started an organization called Streets for All. We believe in a multimodal Los Angeles, not just the city of Los Angeles, but multimodal region. I'll say I think it's important for two reasons. One, the most important thing is lives. We have a 2-decade high of pedestrian deaths in the region. The numbers are just going completely the wrong direction, and cars are getting bigger and bigger. People are getting more distracted when they drive, and the results are really deadly, especially for kids. Car crashes now are the number one cause of death for kids in the LA area, and that's really sad. The other thing is quality of life. We're kind of out of space to do other things. We can't expand roads anymore. We're not going to double deck roads. I don't think anyone wants that. And I live near West Hollywood. I was biking over here today and I was flying past cars, just people stuck in traffic on Santa Monica Boulevard, looking miserable, wanting to get home, wanting to do anything but be stuck in traffic. And it got me thinking that we just are completely out of space. And unless we convert some of those trips, some of the time to be multimodal, walking, rail, bus, bike, you pick, this area is just going to get less and less livable. And I don't think anyone enjoys being in traffic or looking for parking. So I think this is a quality of life issue in addition to saving lives.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chiaro. I'm, I guess, a mobility activist, you would say. I'm very involved in Santa Monica. I've been living here for 10 years. I didn't used to be that involved in Santa Monica because I thought everything was perfect and fine, and LA needed more help than we did, so I kind of got more involved there. And over the past couple of years, I've realized that we also need the community to get involved here and speak up and support these things, because I think it's a very important topic for many reasons. One of them being that it really affects everybody, regardless of how you get around, where you go, how much time you spend outside, it will affect you. And right now, things are not in great shape and everyone is affected in many ways. And it's not just a matter of safety. Like Michael said, it's a matter of like health, physical health, mental health, sustainability, equity, accessibility. So I think we can solve or help solve a lot of issues if we improve transportation.
Pass it on here. Thanks so much, Jesse, and thanks to the Santa Monica Democratic Club for holding this panel discussion today. My name is Ben Marcus, born and raised in Sunset Park, went to Grant, John Adams, Samuel High. Still live in Sunset Park with my wife and my 6-year-old daughter, Sophie, who's watching on Zoom. Hi, Sophie. I'm very passionate about mobility. I've made it my career as an entrepreneur and today as a venture capital investor, investing in early stage companies that are building transportation technologies. And I think there's two major existential risks facing the world today. One is climate change, and the other is people not understanding each other. And that's why you see human beings fighting over petty differences rather than celebrating their similarities. I think that transportation has a way of curing that ill by people together in physical proximity, connecting people with a global marketplace. So if you're living in someplace like, let's say, Congo, which is rich in natural resources, equatorial climate, people can produce really wonderful things there, but they don't have an ability to trade them on a global marketplace because they don't have the transportation infrastructure. So, as Michael said, transportation has a way of elevating quality of life, and I think bringing people together. It is the largest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. So, if we want to enhance the utility of transportation while reducing its greenhouse gas impact, we have to make investments, and that's what I'm pleased to do on a daily basis.
Hello, I'm Emery Cunningham. I'm a senior at Santa Monica High School, And I wouldn't call myself an expert on mobility so much as I bike to school every day and back. I am an involved youth in Santa Monica and a few of my different extracurricular activities in various political processes. And I like to look at the big picture in terms of mobility because we're Santa Monica, really. We have a unique position on the national, you could say international stage, where a lot of people look to us, and the nation sometimes looks to California for its policies. What we decide to do here in our city can be a model for the rest of the state, perhaps the nation.
Hello, thank you for having me back. My name is Michael Brodsky, and I'm on the board of Santa Monica Spoke, and I'm standing in for Cynthia Rose, who's the director and could be here today. But if I think about what is important about mobility and transportation, it's community. When you're locked in an automobile, you have no sense of community. When you're walking, you can say hello. When you're riding your bike, you could wave hello. You could stop, you could talk, you could interact. On a streetcar, you could do the same things. And so if we can encourage that sense of community where we have interaction with people in a safe environment, it's a win-win. That's what we've been working on at Santa Monica Spoke.
So something we skipped over, but it's very important, we'll do now. Jackie, she mentioned she works for the city, and she has a brief presentation on sort of what the latest work that we've been up to in the city to get a shared context of what's been going on, and then from there we'll transition back to some questions for the panel.
Just let me know when you need to go to the next slide.
Can we adjust the camera so we can see Michael over on the right?
I'll get started. So we have a presentation tonight just kind of set the table, give you guys a background about our mobility plan and what we're up to in the city. We're working on the policy foundation for mobility projects that impact and current and upcoming projects. So first, I'll start by reviewing the challenges that we're addressing with this work and how it aligns with our council's priority. Next slide. First and foremost, a clean and safe Santa Monica is a council priority, and this extends to our largest public asset, which is our public right-of-way. Between 2015 and 2019, 5% of crashes in Santa Monica were fatal or severe injuries. However, 65% of those involved in vulnerable road users, people walking and biking. A sustainable and connected community is another council priority. To realize our climate goals, we need to focus on transportation, which is the largest emission sector in Santa Monica, accounting for 68% of our emissions. Preventing homelessness and community economic recovery are council priorities, and transportation is a major household expense. According to AAA, the annual cost to own and operate a car is over $14,000 a year. Additionally, 60% of our Big Blue Bus customers are low income, and just over 1 in 10 households in Santa Monica do not own a car. So we're working to provide access to opportunity for people across the economic spectrum. Both the public right-of-way and private development is rapidly changing in the city, and our infrastructure needs to meet the demands of these changes. Whether it's a mixed-use development, new parklets popping up, or managing the increased amount of deliveries, these changes require close coordination to make sure all users have access and can use the public right-of-way safely. Next. Lastly, the best practices in roadway design are constantly evolving, which allows us to implement design features that improve safety. Change is difficult and it can take time to adjust to new ways of navigating our roadways. That's why we have such a laser focus on communication and education as we roll out these new projects. To address these challenges, our mobility projects are guided by 4 primary goals. So reducing emissions by converting 50% of local trips to active modes. Vision Zero, which is the city's commitment to eliminate fatal and severe crashes in our city. building a complete high-quality network that's connected and that helps people get from point A to point B seamlessly. And also an inclusive design that ensures facilities are accessible for all ages, including people 8 to 80. So there are several adopted plans and documents that guide our work and support the policy goals. I won't go through all of these tonight, but each plan went through an exhaustive community engagement process, and each plan has a list of specific projects to provide a variety of transportation options for our community. Next slide. So in a minute, I'll dive into the various projects that we're working on, but first I want to kind of highlight how things are going. So in this chart, the commute to work mode share trend is going up for both bicyclists and pedestrians. And while walk and bike trips are going up, the overall crashes are going down, including collisions involving bicyclists and pedestrians. Next slide. Well, sorry, previous slide there, to show the trends for severe and fatal. While overall crashes are down, the trend line for fatal and severe crashes is variable. So some years are better than others, which is why we're committed to advancing transportation projects to get us to zero. Next slide. So I want to briefly touch on the process we go through for implementing some of these projects. We get this question a lot. So once the challenge is identified, we research how to address it through a study or planning efforts. We leverage the plans to secure funding, usually in the form of grants from Metro or Caltrans, combined with local funds like transportation impact fees as the grant match. Then the project goes into design. There's usually about 5 rounds of design revisions. And once it's completed or reaches final design, it's then handed over to our Public Works Department to bid for construction, which usually takes about 6 months. And then after that, construction can begin. So projects are constantly being improved, which is why we have this feedback loop at the end of the graphic there. Sometimes like the pilot protected bike lanes on Broadway, we evaluate that design and go back and make improvements as needed. And in other instances, we take the lessons learned from a project and incorporate them into the next project. So engagement is really the foundation and the through line for all this work. Throughout the process, we're engaging the community in plan development, getting support from grant applications, design review, and discussing those trade-offs. When we create a scope, we're looking to incorporate as many solutions along the corridor to advance as many projects identified in the various plans. And we work to coordinate with Public Works on timelines to try to line up our work with other public work projects, like especially annual paving, which creates a better end product, helps us to restripe the roadway, gives us an opportunity to restripe the roadway while they're reconstructing the conditions of the pavement. It just allows us to be more efficient and work together and save on construction costs. So this approach allows us to just create multiple safety elements while they are also repaving the roadway. So the image here is from 17th Street project, which includes enhancements for pedestrians and cyclists, as well as enhancements for drivers, improving visibility around the corners and slowing those turning movements to reduce the conflicts. This intersects with Broadway here, which is another protected bikeway project that's up and coming. So we teed up this intersection so that it aligns nicely with our future implementation of upgrading Broadway. The next slide, please. So this is our suite of mobility projects at the moment. There's about 18 projects underway or recently completed. The yellow and orange segments represent the projects, the yellow being pedestrian and the orange being bicycle projects. And from all our plans, we currently have a list of approximately 50 projects, which we have prioritized based on safety need, plan priority, and recency, and right-of-way of other implementation constraints and funding capability. We're always looking for grant funding to realize the next round of priority projects, though not all the projects shown here will be competitive due to the requirement of various grants out there. Next slide. So I'll just run through and review a couple of completed projects and upcoming projects. This is our 17th Street project, 17th Street and Michigan Avenue project. We've had a ribbon cutting in December. celebrating the protected bikeway, protected intersections, many traffic circles on Michigan Avenue, and some new pedestrian scale lighting. On Ocean Avenue here, we upgraded the COVID era tactical bike lanes to concrete curb protection, upgraded crosswalk markings, and we're able to add about 75 parking spaces. So the machine that you see in there, I think we had a great tweet that went viral, basically printing concrete curb here, while the guy on the machine is eating his McMuffin or something. It's that easy. It's that easy. Next slide, please. So when we first created our Vision Zero plan, we found that the entire stretch of Wilshire Boulevard was part of our priority network. So we embarked on a year-long community engagement process and crash history analysis to identify the root cause of these crashes and implemented solutions to mitigate them. We're now rolling out the plan in 3 phases. The first phase was recently completed, which is the photo you see here. And I want to highlight, this is a great example that is rooted in the data. We implemented right turn only restrictions from the unsignalized side streets to eliminate the cause of about 25% of the crashes on the corridor. And throughout, we've also added 5 pedestrian flashing beacons to help pedestrians cross safely. Next slide. So here's 4th Street, phase 2. It's almost complete. We've added another crosswalk in the foreground. There's the new crosswalk where there wasn't one before. It's made walking between Salmo High and Civic Center to downtown United Station more pleasant. We've adjusted the signal timing to give pedestrians a head start when they cross, and implemented new fencing across the freeway bridge. And here is the 4th phase of our Michigan Avenue neighborhood greenway, known as Mango, to reunite the 2 discontinuous portions of Michigan Avenue that were bisected by the construction of the freeway. Notably, this project includes a new pathway between 20th and 21st Street, south of Crossroads School, and a protected 2-way bike path along the 20th Street Bridge. So we just went over the first 2 projects on this list, which should wrap up construction pretty soon here. The next 3 are all part of the Vermont area, and include the building of missing sidewalks on Olympic Boulevard and Pennsylvania Avenue, adding a missing crosswalk at the intersection of Olympic and 26, protected bike lanes on Stewart Street between Colorado and Kansas, and another protected bicycle facility on 26th Street between Broadway and Olympic. The 6 schools project is going to build 25 curb extensions, upgrade ramps across various public school campuses in the city. Next. East Eco is underway with community engagement and will eventually design and construct low-cost interventions on the portion of the boulevard east of 27. This is to pilot some of the treatments that could potentially be converted to permanent concrete. The Colorado and Broadway protected bikeways are entering construction later this year and early next year, and will provide secure east-west bikeway connections connecting downtown Santa Monica with the neighborhoods. And then Wilshire phase 2 includes new signals at 16th Street and Chelsea, and hardening the curb extensions at 5 other intersections. And then finally, we're in the procurement process for the Santa Monica Boulevard safety study. We just recently won grant funding for this, and we are planning to replicate the same process that we went through for Wilshire Boulevard. So in terms of next steps, we will be continuing to work on our grant funded projects to implement that work. Also identifying more funding sources for the next round of unfunded projects that I showed earlier, prepare grant applications as staff capacity allows, and continue to educate and promote and celebrate these projects and the progress that we're making in the city. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, we're dedicated to ensuring the safety and sustainability of every journey in Santa Monica, from pedestrians and bicyclists to drivers and transit riders. Our goal is to reduce emissions, prioritize sustainability, and work tirelessly toward a future with 0 fatal and severe injuries. on our streets. And if you're interested in learning more, I encourage you to sign up, scan the QR code and reach out to us. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Jackie, for providing that overview. If you tuned into council on Tuesday, you probably got a preview, but if you didn't, you got another chance to see all the great stuff that Santa Monica is already doing. That said, this is a panel that will attempt to go beyond that and see, you know, what still remains when it comes to really doing this work and to the best of our ability and keeping people as safe as possible. So on the topic of public safety, I'm gonna jump right in and I'm gonna address certain questions to certain people so that we can get through a number. And if someone's really desperate to weigh in on one that I don't pick you for, just let me know and you can do it too. But I think we all agree at this panel and probably among you that, you know, public safety conversations are not just about police and fire, which are very important, but also about the safety of all of the users of our roadways, people who walk, bike, take the bus and drive on our streets. Cars, as was already mentioned, are the #1 cause of death for children in the county. Traffic violence is increasing everywhere across the country. The New York Times has been talking about this quite a lot. I could recite all sorts of other terrible statistics, but the question I have today has to do with some things that have been going on lately, which is what happens when these public safety concerns run up against competing public safety concerns, notably from some of our emergency services that have their own needs when they and desires when it comes to our roadways. If anyone's been following, there's a ballot measure that Michael will probably speak more to in Los Angeles called Measure HLA. And the firefighters union has come out against it, saying it will make their job harder and things less safe. I'll also add that in Santa Monica, the reason we don't install speed bumps, despite the desire of a lot of residents to have them on their street, is that, again, Santa Monica Fire Department also has the same issue, saying that it might possibly delay their response times. So this all leads me to my question, which is that, is there a real tension here or just a perceived one? And most importantly, what do we do about it to get to the result we all want to see, which is improved safety outcomes across all of these areas? And I will pass it first to Michael to talk about his measure and his experience. And so
start with the softball. I'll tell you quickly about the measure and then I'll try to diplomatically talk about UFLAC and their opposition. Does anyone live in the city of Los Angeles that's here? No. Okay. And you can't vote for it. But great.
I voted yes.
Thank you.
But I did
The noise.
What you're saying, like.
So I'll quickly just tell you what this is for those that aren't familiar. In 2022, we gathered 100,000 signatures to place this on the ballot. The city of Los Angeles has a mobility plan. And by the way, I just want to move to Santa Monica and put myself out of my misery because our streets look like a NACDO workshop and they're amazing. Anyway, we got this thing on the ballot. The city has a mobility plan, 3,000 miles of streets. The city of LA would be enhanced for pedestrians, cyclists, transit, and for drivers. And they've done 5% in 8 years. They've turned a 20-year plan to a 160-year plan. And the most interesting stat to me is more than half of the injuries and deaths that have happened in the last 8 years have happened on streets that are on the mobility plan, but the treatment hasn't been implemented. So this would literally save lives. So HLA is really simple. Anytime the city of LA repaves a street, they repave a few hundred miles every year, they would have to put in their own mobility plan. It's not my plan, it's the city's own plan. It's become a little bit controversial because, like you said, Jesse, not the firefighters union has come out saying this is going to delay emergency response. And when you dig into their concerns, they're just complete nonsense. Nobody wants to delay emergency response. I think we can all agree on that. The addition of bus-only lanes and center turn lanes, which often happen from street redesign projects, are a boon to emergency services. They can use those lanes to bypass traffic. I think we can just look around the world. I mean, think about the old kind of medieval cities of Europe, or if you've been to Japan. I mean, these streets are much, much smaller. You don't hear about buildings catching on fire and burning down, or people having heart attacks not getting tended to because emergency services can't get to them. It's complete nonsense. Unfortunately, and by the way, it's not just, this would affect you too, it's not just UFLAC, it's the California Firefighters Union that's backing them, which obviously would apply to Santa Monica as well. So there's this perception that if you redesign streets to be more multimodal, if you narrow lanes, then we can't get to you if you have an emergency. In fact, they even went so far as to say they couldn't get to the 10 freeway fire faster because of the protected bike lane. We have one protected bike lane in the city of LA that looks like yours with concrete, and it's on 7th Street in Skid Row. And they said they could have gotten to the 10 freeway faster, like implying that, you know, the freeway burnt down because of the bike. But anyway, I think we can look at the size of our apparatus. We have some of the biggest fire trucks in the world. It sort of matches our desire to have SUVs and pickup trucks. LA is actually testing a Swedish fire truck right now that's all electric. That's about half the size, but can still do almost everything the big ones can. That maybe is a step in the right direction. Speed humps are interesting. The city of West Hollywood, I was telling you, Jesse, put in speed humps that have gaps in them. And if you're just in a normal car, you still go over the hump. But if you're in a fire engine, just a little bit wider, you go through the gap. And so the speed hump doesn't actually slow you down. So there's ways to do that. But there's no conflict. And the last thing I'll say is that what are they responding to? Only 5% of calls are for actual fires. They're responding to people that many times are hurt and killed in our streets. So there would actually be there would be fewer calls if the streets were safer, which is something we should all want. So thank you for your vote on HLA. But the truth is, if you're in Los Angeles, don't worry. If you're having dinner in the city of Los Angeles and you have an emergency, you will still get served, even if HLA passes, hopefully in 6 days. Thank you.
I did mention Santa Monica because this is something that's come up sometimes with projects, and I know we have an extensive design process that you referenced, Jackie, around an iterative process where designs are made and then sort of passed through various different departments to weigh in and comment, and then there are adjustments made at multiple times. But occasionally different agencies can be a veto on things. And I'm just curious, you know, if you have a perspective on this in terms of how that process goes, if there are ways that we could, you know, make sure that the mobility voice is more heard in these discussions or is more prioritized, and, you know, just sort of what your experience is in terms of navigating this particular issue.
Thank you. Good question. Especially, you know, there were on 17 where we changed the roadway design, and there's 4 retirement centers there, and so there's a lot of emergency access that's needed. We work really closely with our fire department. We're partners with them throughout every phase of the project and check in with them regularly. We even do demos in the street before the construction is implemented. So we mark out the changes to the roadway to make sure that the vehicles can make their turns. And we're very conservative when we analyze these things in our models, simulate the turning movements of these vehicles. We use the largest vehicle they have, which they really, they don't use as often, but to be more conservative, we test these things. And I think that has helped a lot with our implementation of the projects, but we also realized that it's really helpful to get out in the field and talk to the emergency responders who are actually driving the equipment and machine, working with them, as opposed to just going directly to the chief. While that's really important too, it also needs to trickle down to boots on the ground to understand what they're experiencing, because sometimes that might be different than what the management is experiencing. And so there's always tweaks, I think, that we can do. In the case of 17th, I'll give an example where we had parking in front of some of these nursing facilities, but because it was challenging for the fire department to get it wasn't challenging for the fire department to get to. The fire department was able to get there. It was challenging for the drivers to get around the fire department, and that was really where the complaints were stemming from. But to eliminate that conflict or reduce that conflict, we removed parking and added emergency red curb so that they could then pull up into that space. So I think there's just tweaks that we can do that we might not always go for first, because we want to, you know, in this case, we wanted to mitigate the parking impacts for the community. But later returned to find that maybe, it would help with access, for cars to get past the emergency vehicles as they're stationed in front of these locations. So I think just the regular communication and making sure, it's happening at the top and at the bottom has been really helpful, with our work.
All right, I'm gonna move on unless anyone wants to talk specifically to that. But on a related topic, I will say, I hear a lot as a council member from residents, people who bike, people who walk in the community, people with small children, who say to me that there's a lot of, let's just say, bad driving in the community. Stop signs that are run, people who are on their phones, not paying attention, speeding, and parking in bike lanes, all sorts of things. And the thing that I hear a lot from residents is that there's sort of relative impunity for all of these things. Like, people just seem to do it and no one ever seems to be deterred or receive any sort of warning or punishment or other admonishment for it. And when you look at traffic stop data, I didn't bring the slide, I should have, but I did an analysis of this. It's kind of interesting. Since 2020 in Santa Monica and seemingly in many jurisdictions around the country, enforcement has gone way down. I know in Santa Monica, the data shows that we used to pull over around 40 people a day for traffic violations, and now the average is around 8. And that's been consistent since 2020. The question is sort of broad, but it's, you know, what's happening here? Is there a role for enforcement when it comes to deterring this kind of reckless behavior? Do we want armed cops pulling over more people? Should we be embracing more automated methods instead, like red light and speed cameras? It's a thorny issue, but clearly the status quo where people are sort of committing dangerous moving violations all the time is not a good one. And so I'm gonna pass this to someone who's experienced some of it. If you want to start with any thoughts on this.
Rant.
Yeah, I ride my bike around Santa Monica every day. I believe I do it fairly safely and respectfully of all road users. That's my goal. But I experience a lot of negative interactions with drivers, and I think many people do. I think I'm not the only one. A couple years ago, I got a camera on my bike for my safety, just because I was hit multiple times. I had friends who were in different runs. I had people who were killed, and in my experience with enforcement, it seems like the word of the person riding the bike is never really taken seriously, and so I figured I needed evidence. So I've been riding around with a camera on my bike, and I've been documenting a lot of these interactions because I figured, you know, if I'm gonna have to go through them every day, I might as well use it as a tool to bring awareness to this issue. Yeah, it seems like it's been getting worse. But yeah, it seems like people are now aware that they can get away with basically anything. I witness a lot of it. I witness a lot of it right in front of enforcement. I witness it being committed by enforcement. So I don't have a lot of hope. As an anecdote, I guess, a couple weeks ago, I had a pretty terrible interaction with a driver who was about to run the stop sign, got upset that he couldn't because I was in the middle of the intersection, and honked at me and then swerved at me aggressively. And many people recommended that I report it, which I was not really interested in because the person never got hit. PD refused to take a report because they figured it wasn't serious enough. So I thought, they're not going to take a report if I didn't even get hit. And indeed I went, and they were not really interested in taking a report until I mentioned that lawyers had recommended that they take a report. And suddenly they were interested. But they told me that the driver did nothing wrong other than run a stop sign because road rage is not illegal in the city. So that's basically my experience. And yeah, I think I don't know what is actually happening on the side of enforcement. I'm not involved in any of these discussions. I hear that enforcement is more and more involved with DOT and having discussions with them, but I have not seen anything positive come out of it. I'm sure they'll catch me if I run a stop sign, but other than that, I don't believe they'll do much if a driver does it, so yeah. That's my
It's interesting, in the Netherlands, which is a very pleasant place to bike. If there's a crash, the driver is presumed guilty automatically. And they actually have to prove their innocence. Here, it's pretty much the opposite. I think that would go a long way. That's culture change, but it's also changing laws.
Pass it down here to anyone who has thoughts on the issue of bad driving and what we should do about it. Yeah.
Some simple way of framing a problem helps clarify a lot of confusion. I'll give you something we've been promoting for quite some time, is the use of language. So often you hear about there's an accident here and an accident there and an accident here. To me, an accident is like when a tree falls over, that's an accident. But when a car hits another car, or a car hits a pedestrian, or a car hits a bicycle, or a bicycle hits a pedestrian, it's usually not an accident, it's a collision. And once you understand that it's a collision or a crash, you can then determine the cause of that. Was it this user or that user, or was it the infrastructure that caused that collision? And so when it's an accident, everybody throws up their hands in the air and saying, there's nothing we could do about it. And so when you start thinking that things aren't accidents, but there's a cause for what happened, then you can start coming up with solutions. And that solution could be finding somebody, throwing them in jail, arresting somebody, fixing infrastructure, education. There's all sorts of things that can come out of it. So reframing things, I think, can go a long way, and that kind of keys into what you were saying. But how do you presume who's guilty or who's not guilty? Usually, if somebody dies, the person who survived the collision is exonerated because there's no proof on the other side. So rethinking, I think, can frame a lot.
Thoughts on this? Do you want to speak to it?
A little bit, I think. On my most frequent ride to school, I'd say that traffic is more an issue that I've personally experienced, being a threat. There isn't much space when I'm moving down Michigan to Lincoln, between the many rows of cars that everyone's trying to get to because it's the morning. And this sometimes deters bikers at all, especially because this is a street that students and then presumably newer bikers would want to use. They often don't. My brother doesn't because he's afraid he's not that comfortable, that he isn't a good biker, but he's just newer to it. He's a freshman. And so I've experienced more or seen more bad driving in streets around Santa Monica. I think that the driving actually, in my experience, it's been fine around Santa Monica High School. I'd say it's more of an infrastructure problem, as you mentioned, or basically the whole setup, where a lot of cars want to use this one road, and there simply isn't enough space to make it work.
I'm gonna shift the conversation to some other modes of transit beyond some of the ones we've talked about already. I'm gonna take us in a very different direction. I'm not sure if some of you saw it or not. There was an article recently in the Santa Monica Daily Press that talked about electric powered aircraft with vertical takeoff and landing capabilities, and seemingly are no longer a far-flung idea of the future. They're here, and they may not be too far away from actually gaining approval to operate commercially. My question about that is, what do people on the panel think about them? What kind of role do they have to play, or would they maybe play in our sustainable mobility future? And if so, how? And a particularly sensitive one, how does this change people's perceptions of the future of our airport? So I'll start with Ben here, who has some experience.
Cool. Wasn't expecting this question, but happy to provide my perspective. So, Los Angeles is a very flat and spread out polyopolis in the region with 10+ million people who live in the area. And a lot of people commute into Santa Monica every day by car. I think it's about 100,000, maybe more. I don't know exactly the number, but you know, the population of the city surges during the day for work, and most people are getting here by car. So I think that there is a role to play for other modes of transit to come into the city. People some come from very long distances away that may not be bikeable. You know, living in the city unfortunately is very expensive, and so you have people who are coming from Lancaster and Corona and Temecula and Riverside and all over the place to come and work in Santa Monica. So, you know, if we can get 5,000 or 10,000 cars a day off the road and allow people to commute here by some other means that is fast and quiet and sustainable and electric, I think that's a great thing. You know, I think that Santa Monica has historically been a place that has embraced technology. You know, we are a city that has always been a home for innovation in all sorts of fields, not just transportation technology, but art and entertainment and other things. And I think we have, you know, a bit of a legacy to embrace in this area, and to continue to encourage the development of you know, of these technologies to help train students for green economy jobs of the future. And you know, what better place than Santa Monica to kind of create a better future for others around the world. Like, what do we want to stand for? We want people to be thinking of Santa Monica as, but a place that creates value for the rest of the world. So I think this would be a great opportunity for us to embrace this technology, make our community better, and also make the rest of the world better.
Anyone else have a up there, Michael?
Wow, this is a handful. You know, the bicycle is a pretty incredible tool, and it is what's called appropriate technology. And if we make safer streets that are more accessible, if we build cities that are more compact, if we provide better transit in terms of rail, we really probably don't need flying airplanes or flying vertical takeoff planes. So I'm a proponent of appropriate technology, particularly active technology like bicycling and walking, because it has so many more benefits. Providing this new form of transportation, helicopters that could land on rooftops. Okay, maybe at some point, but I think we get more bang for our buck doing something else. I do have to address that article that did come out, because it had enormous amounts of misinformation. The company that is promoting this has yet to fly their vehicle in a test with the person in it. And they claim they're going to have it coming to Santa Monica next year, if you read the article. The article was made to help promote keeping the airport an airport instead of transforming it into a park, but it closes in just 5 years. And there's no way that this is going to be approved in 5 years when the FAA does not have a format yet to approve that type of flying. And that's not due till 2028 when the airport closes. So that's my.
See some thoughts in the audience. I'm gonna get through a couple more questions and then I'm gonna open it up to everyone, if that's okay. I just want to make sure we address a few more things. So I know that's a hot topic though, so I'm happy to have us come back to it shortly. Just to make sure we cover our bases here, I want to talk about buses. Santa Monica has its own bus system, which is pretty rare for a city of our size. That's called the Big Blue Bus, I'm sure you know. And it's actually in the middle of a kind of interesting moment where they're doing an entire 360 evaluation of where they are and where they should be headed strategically as a system. There are a lot of reasons for this. COVID, work from home patterns have shifted, ridership is lower, and making this a good time to ask these questions of the sort of where to next for the Big Blue Bus. There's actually opportunities as early as next week, both virtually and in person, for you to give your own feedback about the bus and what you like and what you think it needs and whatnot. But with that in mind, I also wanted to solicit people on this panel's opinions on where we think we need to be headed to improve our bus system. And I'll just throw out two things that I think about a lot. You can speak to them or you can not, it doesn't matter. I think a lot, sometimes something that's been brought to me is the trade-off between the number of routes that we service and the frequency of service along those routes.
that perhaps focusing on the latter might be more effective when it comes to enticing riders if there are, which, less headways between buses. You miss a bus, the next one's coming soon. The other one is just a bigger topic that I just constantly mystified. Bus rapid transit. It's a very low cost and great way that a lot of car-centric cities across Latin America have dealt with it by creating dedicated bus lanes at which buses can really move. And I'm always personally confused why we don't have more of that here. So in any case, does anyone have thoughts about the Big Blue Bus and where we should be going as a system, or just buses in general in the region?
I'll say one thing. Do you think Santa Monica would be willing to follow LA's lead in this case and extend the Wilshire Boulevard bus lane to the ocean? It could be a peak hour system like LA's, where you remove parking and the bus has that space, or it could be full time. You guys can lead on it, and maybe that can get pushed east. So I guess it's a political question, Jesse, that maybe you can speak to, but really, that's a very busy bus route. You guys do have bus lanes on Lincoln, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. LA is about to extend those further south, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think Santa Monica is at the point, if you want bus lanes, there's going to be trade-offs. And do you think the constituency is willing to accept those trade-offs?
Before I say anything, does anyone else want to weigh in on the Big Blue Bus?
On the same line as what Michael was saying, once if HLA passes, both Santa Monica and Wilshire have bus lanes on them in Los Angeles, and maybe Jackie has some input on that, but Santa Monica is about to go through a safety study in Santa Monica. So I don't know if that's something we could maybe look into on our side. Maybe that's an opportunity.
Yeah, we have talked about that a little. I think what's challenging for us, is that the buses are not having an issue once they reach Santa Monica. So it's not really a problem to resolve there, but it could change once, it changes in LA. They get stuck in the LA part.
So hold on, it's totally smooth sailing, and then the LA border,
In talking to our transit team,
that's why you don't have more bus lanes, you don't need them.
What about
But-
Fourth Street?
I'm not sure there, but I will say, we are open to that. I think, it's just, it'll probably change when the change happens in LA first, and we're, open and willing to respond to that. And part of that study, we'll look at that as well. Another thing I'll mention is, so yeah, to your point about frequency, I think you're right, if you have more frequency, that might be the better way to go, as opposed to more lines, I don't know, but it seems like that would be a big improvement. And another thing I would say is, just based on comments from the community of students who go to San Mo High, it's the only high school in Santa Monica. Everyone's driving. I mean, it seems like a lot of people are driving to San Mo High. If we can improve transit for the school hours to get to get students on the bus to get there faster than going in a car, I think that would be amazing. And so we talked to our transit operators or management team about that as well. So I think that's part of the study that they're working on as well.
I remember very fondly as a kid in Santa Monica, taking the Narrate bus from Clover Park basically down to the beach for boogie boarding. And the sort of really cool old buses that were owned by old stuff. Anyway, I'm curious what ridership is like now. I mean, I'm not super familiar with the ridership data for Santa Monica and specifically around high school students, for example. Answering the question, like, why are they not taking the bus? Is it because of the schedule, or because of the routes, or is it because of the experience? And I'm curious if there's maybe anecdotal information about that, but I'd be curious to hear, what element would really make riding the bus more appealing for for more people in Santa Monica, particularly high school students.
Yeah, I get. I think it's a little bit about, the conception of options, and also I'd say the routes and speed. When I was thinking like, oh, how am I gonna get to school every day when I entered high school and had to make that commute? Biking just is the simplest. It's right at my house and I can take it right to school. Taking the bus would add a few extra legs that might make the journey longer. Regardless of I've had experiences with the Big Blue Bus system that make it not sometimes it's not very fast. I was once or maybe this might have not been the Big Blue Bus, but I remember a friend of mine and I missed a stop for a bus going to, back to my house. And instead of waiting at the stop for the next bus, we're like, okay, we're gonna move to the next stop so that we can like make back. Sometimes we have to wait 20 minutes. I think we got around that bus for like an hour. It wasn't it didn't create faith that that system was gonna work for me in high school in general and for my transportation system. So, and because we have the good alternative of biking being convenient in Santa Monica, it doesn't beat that.
What about a bus lane on PCH, pressuring Caltrans to do that?
I think there's a lot of opportunities. I think, as we've said, I think as a lot of people have commented, it's really only an option that most people will take if they have a choice, if it actually is more convenient in some way. And if it feels like it's less, then you're only going to get a certain percentage of people really willing to do so. I will say also there's a trade-off that I didn't speak to around, the majority of the people who take Big Blue Bus use it to commute from somewhere outside of Santa Monica into the city, often for work or other things. So a lot of the lines are oriented that way, which makes a lot of sense because that's a lot of our ridership. But, there are ways that we could look at structuring certain routes so that they are more convenient to Santa Monica and so that they circulate, from certain neighborhoods to the downtown and back, and otherwise might, entice Santa Monicans to use the bus more as well. I'm gonna ask one more quick question. I'm sensing there's a lot of people in the audience who also want to ask questions, so I'm gonna ask one more quick one and then I'll be done. There's a concept called quick build street design. Essentially, what it means is, interim capital infrastructure projects, not, concrete and some of the, more durable things, but these low to moderate cost materials that you can sort of throw in the street quickly, and they last for a few years, and you can test things out. And the idea is that it can be cheaper and faster to experiment with our roadways. They've become kind of trendy again in mobility circles and embraced by a lot of DOTs around the country. And I think there were some examples like Broadway has some of that right now that you guys have experimented with and are then gonna now do permanent infrastructure. But at the same time, I've also heard, including from people in Santa Monica, that, oh, it really doesn't save much time. It's not really our primary constraint. It's, the planning process is what, takes it. Though at the same time, I see Los Angeles utilizing it quite a lot, the city of Los Angeles. Throwing down bollards and things in different places to quickly change things. And I guess I'm just curious about this debate. Should we be embracing this for all projects so we can quickly put something down on the road and learn from that and iterate every time? Should we see more of this in Santa Monica? And what are the trade-offs when we're talking about that versus, more permanent infrastructure?
The nice thing about the quick build is it's so flexible that you can really change it. On Broadway, that was the first, I guess, protected bikeway besides Colorado, where we use that treatment on a small stretch to test it out. How would people respond? Was our design going to work for this? And we came back recently and revised some things. We added more daylighting, more red to the entry points at alleys and intersections to improve visibility after community feedback, after observations. But the nice thing that a really nice thing that we saw from that is that we saw a 23% decrease in crashes along that stretch from the time we implemented in 2020 to a few months ago. So that's positive. We can see that, we can see it quickly, we can put it in fairly quickly. I wouldn't say it's that much faster, but it's inexpensive. And when you're putting down concrete, if you make a mistake, that's very, very expensive. So I think that's the trick, the big difference. And I think we should continue to use those materials to test things, but if we have funding to go all the way, I think that's the way to go. I mean, in a couple of projects here that I shared that are coming up on construction, we initially had plastic bollards for some of the barriers, and after putting in 17th, our feeling was that how can we continue to use plastic after putting in this nice high quality infrastructure? We've got to go this other way. And the cost of doing that is not that much of a difference from these concrete barriers. The way they're installed is not that different from the K71s, which is the plastic bollards. It's still kind of considered a quick build method, just the way they're dialed into the asphalt. They basically sit on top. So it is faster, but when you get into curb ramps and signal design and moving poles, that just gets more expensive, which is not really in the quick build wheelhouse. So I think we should always be exploring both.
I guess to follow up, I just, oh yeah, please, Michael.
I was just gonna ask, in a project, Jackie, let's say it takes 100 days to make something up. I know probably everything takes long. What percentage of the time is outreach, design, approvals, all of that compared to the actual build? The actual build is the quickest part, right? Mostly. No?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean,
Well-
17th Street took a very long time.
Okay, well, all the way in the city of Los Angeles, I'll say, I was kind of chuckling when you said quick build, because quick build is literally using K71 bollards versus concrete. You guys have a guy eating a McMuffin, you know, doing it really quickly. Like, that video was amazing. Can I borrow that machine? I'm not kidding. So quick build is only quick build if it's a quick build process from A to Z, and most of the time, the community outreach, the design and engineering documents, all of that take the same amount of time nearly if it's concrete versus paint and bollards. So I'm interested in a quick build A to Z, but if it's just the materials, I don't know, that concrete machine is pretty cool.
Well, and the maintenance on these things, right? You have to do that, but
Yeah, great. Okay, so I have more, but I want to make sure that people can ask questions in the audience. I don't know if there's an easy way to get this microphone out, or John?
Just keep it question.
Okay, great. That sounds good. Jerry in the front.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Thanks. Plus, I want to thank the Democratic Club for doing this mobility panel. I've been taking the alternative transportation my whole life, never had a car, never had a driver's license. The Big Blue Bus is fantastic. I took the bus here, I'll be taking it home. Just look at my transit app, I can book, and it's usually pretty good on time. In fact, I'm willing to pay the first fare for anyone that hasn't ridden the Blue Bus, and I'm trying to go with them. I know Pam O'Connor was on the Metro board, and it's a matter of education, and I do believe people are a little bit addicted to their cars, and I know they're a necessity, but with minimal planning, I'm sure you could learn to leave your car home at least 15–20% of the time, and that's a big thing. So I would urge everyone to give the Blue Bus and other forms of alternative transportation a chance. We're switching to electric. As far as the airport and electric, I agree with Michael Brodsky. Electric planes, decades down. Eventually, if they happen, it'll be great for this world. And it'll be great when they start building airports miles away from where residents live and start shuttling them into the cities. But even an electric airplane could crash into a nearby residence. And that's a big problem in Santa Monica, and that's why it's good the airport's closing, turning it into a park. I hope we always remember that.
Thank you, Jerry. I'm not gonna try to repeat all of it, except that it was a ringing endorsement of the Big Blue Bus and how we should all get a card if we don't have one already. Should I ask a few more?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Sir, yeah.
One of them, I guess you could say, consequences of the Big Blue Bus is They can never run after midnight, but they can't start. That's a county thing. And per county, you know, that's how that operates. Consistent with my man in the white shirt said, essentially, when you look at Santa Monica, it has some things going for it that a whole lot of cities in Southern California don't have. One, you got a major tourist attraction. For weather, if it's 100 degrees here, it's 80. If it's 100 degrees in LA, it's 80 here. Consistent with that, there's another major attraction called the Third Street Promenade. So those are two good reasons why people even want to come. Now you got to talk about the college. Enrollment at, I think its peak was 30,000. No dorms on campus. Largely commute, which means most folks have to travel no less than 20, 25 miles just to get here. Having said that, you still have people who more or less work here but don't live here, also commute. So, you know, to that question becomes, have the possibility of looking at affordability for those folks who work here, live here, has that been discussed amongst those folks who set house? You know, because these people, and I would say more than close to half of them, have an obligation to be here, but yet still that trek is as long as an hour and a half. So I'm wondering specifically the feasibility and you know, just what the status of is being able to live here affordably while they work here.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I'll take a stab because it's something I do care a lot about. You know, as you mentioned, between the college and people who have jobs here who can't afford to live here, it's as Ben, I think, mentioned, over 100,000 people, not even counting tourists, you know, who come into the city every day, either for school or for work, and then they have to leave again. And those commutes can be anywhere between 1 and 3 hours, at least. And when people complain about traffic, you know, it's mainly that, you know, it's not really, so I think we need to kind of start to reframe the conversation, because the only way we're going to help more people live close to where we work is if we have more housing in our community. And I think a lot of people think of every new home in our community as another car on the road. But the truth of it is actually we could be taking cars off our road if we are letting people live closer to their jobs and closer to where they go to school. And I think that requires a rethinking of you know, being more welcoming to new neighbors of all income levels in our community. And I think it would actually benefit even our quality of life in ways that we don't always think about. And it's definitely something I'm very committed to from an equity standpoint and from an environmental standpoint and quality of life standpoint, as people have mentioned. You know, commutes are, you know, the length of your commute is been shown to be the single determinant of your mental health. You know, the longer your commute, the worse it is. You know, less time with your family, less time relaxing. It's a really important thing. So it's very important to me that we work on that issue. And more broadly speaking, we're all talking about transit here. I hope every transit advocate is a housing advocate, because you cannot support a good transit system without a certain amount of riders. And if you don't have enough people living in a square acre, you're not going to be able to support enough buses that will make it a worthy system. So the two are very interlocked together.
I was actually just going to say what Jesse said about mental health and commute time. You know, there's 400,000 super commuters in the Los Angeles area, defined by people who commute at least an hour and a half each way to work. And you know, that's a lot of time. That's, you know, 15 hours a week that you're sitting in a car or on a bus or somehow else getting where you want to be instead of being with your family, or being at your work, being productive. So it's I think it's a major challenge for all of us in Southern California. I hope that this gets solved both with more affordable housing and with better options on how to commute to work.
Carl?
Yeah, thanks. Quick question and comment, and thanks for putting on the panel that supported with all alternatives to the car. On the, curious what panelists think about automated speed cameras. And the comment is Ben Allen has a pretty awesome bill that he's introduced this year, SB 1297. That will allow additional cities to identify locations, the cities identified in the bill to have locations where they can install these automated speed cameras. Santa Monica Forward, Santa Monica Spoke, Chasm, some other groups are encouraging that a few streets in Santa Monica, PCH, Lincoln Boulevard and Santa Monica Boulevard be locations where those could be used. And we'd love to ramp up to support that if that's an option. We'd love to get your thoughts.
I'll say one thing and I'll open it up. You know, this is something that's being piloted already in the city of LA. We currently don't have the authority from the state to try this in Santa Monica.
Restate in case it didn't.
Oh, so yeah, sorry to people who are on Zoom. There's a new bill that was just introduced by Senator Ben Allen to expand the pilot program by which cities could introduce speed cameras. Right now, the state sort of has control over who can do that and who can't. Cities can't do it on their own, so you would need a state law to do so. This is allowed currently to be piloted in the city of LA, but not in Santa Monica. There was a really terrible set of fatalities on PCH that you probably heard about. Someone who was driving over 100 miles an hour and killed several, I believe, people who were maybe at Pepperdine.
Yeah.
And it was terrible. And I think that kind of rose to the attention of our senators. And Senator Allen is sponsoring something to allow parts of the PCH to now have these speed cameras. And there is a question, and there are people in Santa Monica and West Hollywood who would also potentially like the ability to pilot these things. And the question broadly for the panel is, you know, what do you think about this as a tool in our toolkit?
So Street Sprawl was a sponsor of that bill, and it wasn't easy. The ACLU in particular was very against the bill. And I think we're at a weird point in society where some people don't want armed police officers doing enforcement. And they also don't want automated enforcement like cameras. And I don't know what's left other than just impunity and anarchy. LA is allowed to do it. We have not deployed cameras yet. Glendale is another city that's included. We like to think in the US that this is, we're always trying things and this part of the world is just so different. But speed cameras have been working for decades in Europe and in other parts of the world, and we're not that unique. So they will work here. In my opinion, it's much better than an armed response, and it can change driver behavior. The stats you quoted, Jesse, are an 80% reduction in traffic infractions or traffic enforcement, and that has serious consequences for people like Caro who experience driver behavior with no consequences. So, yeah, I hope Santa Monica is included. I hope PCH is included. I don't know how this is going to get through the legislature because usually they like to do pilots and then see how that goes and then do something else. But maybe the tragedy that happened around Pepperdine and PCH is such a horrible road that it'll change things.
Anyone else want to talk to that issue?
I personally think that one of the benefits of speed cameras over, I guess, human enforcement, besides the fact that it eliminates the bias issue that is a very serious issue that we have right now, it's also constantly there. You're not going to have a police officer who's constantly at an intersection checking driver speeds. They might go there once in a while, and maybe they'll convince it to people to slow down, but a camera is going to be there 24/7, and I think that has a greater impact.
I do want to read a question that relates to this. We don't have to respond.
Before we do that, I just wanted to. So Carl emailed me the other day with this topic, and I know you're working on a letter to Senator Allen. So to get the club to take this position, do you want to make a motion and we can just vote on it here, and then that way, if it passes, we'd be able to join in.
Yeah, I motion that we take a position of support for SB 1297 and that PCH, Lincoln Boulevard and Santa Monica Boulevard and Santa Monica be included.
Okay, great. So there's a motion on the floor and before we take the position on the bill, is that amenable to the chair of the legislative committee?
Well, I have a question for Jesse, because Jesse said, you said it's allowed in LA, but not Santa Monica, and what rule is that, or why is that?
So, you know, traditionally, the state hasn't allowed it anywhere. And then just last year in the previous legislative session, there was a bill, I think it was sponsored by Assemblymember Friedman and others that gave certain jurisdictions the authority to begin piloting this. LA was one of them, Glendale, where she is from, was one of them. There were maybe a few others. Santa Monica and much of the west side was just not included in that bill. And now there's an effort to say, well, can we broaden this pilot a little to allow a few other jurisdictions to try it out as well? So it's really just because the previous bill in the last session just named a few places and we weren't named.
And that was a negotiation, like more cities wanted in, but couldn't get it.
So we could kind of pressure or agitate for this for Santa Monica to be included.
That's the nature of the senator's bill. It's to include the BCH.
Yeah.
And the question is, well, can we throw in, you know, the 2 as another state highway, for instance?
Okay.
Okay, great. Craig, do you have a question on
Yeah.
regard to this motion?
Yeah,
Okay.
in reference to it being passed, will we be able to view what it is we support? Will that be on the website or in any form of, oh, we get?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think that's a side conversation.
Well, and another thing that we had talked about is possibly what we could vote on tonight is the request to include Santa Monica in this, but not to endorse the bill at this time and let the bill go through the normal process, like through the legislative committee and all that.
Okay, so we let's say
Because we haven't seen the bill.
so let's call that a substitute motion unless it's a
Yes.
friendly amendment.
I just had a procedural question. Could we make the motion to have the endorsement be pending the review of the legislative committee? Or would it have to come back again? Or is that too weird? Right?
Yeah, I like your suggestion too.
Respectfully,
Yeah.
I mean, I support this idea, but I feel oppose this procedure. We have a procedure, we can move very quickly, get it to the executive.
Right.
Do it. I think we should take, and also respectfully, we have about 20 people here. I'm not sure how many, including the people who want to come here, actually. So my suggestion is that we get the sense of the room here to do it, and that we, if this is a big view, is about, the room is basically directing the legislative committee to take this up. Now, it's an executive committee. So we take a vote on it. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, we're already open. I've already invited him to come to the meeting on Monday to have the bill
The only
possibly endorsed.
much later than Monday, as we're trying to get this all built, this will be edited.
So for
That's
those who
why I
are on
think
Zoom,
it'd
we're
be-
kind of discussing the procedural order of operations here. And so I think, Mike, to your point,
We, you know, could always do this.
I think the idea that we're circling around here is if we can vote tonight to support the addition of the 2 streets to the bill, just so that we can sign on to the letter that we've been asked to sign on to, not to specifically endorse the bill itself through the legislative process. And then on Monday, Carl can join the legislative committee to propose endorsing the bill itself, which would then go through the process that we've typically done.
Yeah, I like that process.
Okay, so let's call for the Carl and Barry, are you guys cool with that being the motion? Okay, great. So that's the motion. So those who are members of the club, let's have a vote. All in favor? Okay, we have 14 votes in person. How are we doing on Zoom?
It looks like we've got 8 hands raised and 2 thumbs up, or back down to 1. So 9 hands raised, 1 thumbs up. It keeps changing, but it looks like 10 or 11. Maybe we're back down to 10.
Let's call it 26 to be safe. And You know, we don't like to be conservative at the town hall, but we'll be conservative on the vote now. And there anyone who wants to vote no? I think those were all. Yeah, okay. I'm not seeing any no votes, any abstentions. Okay, great. So we'll sign on to the letter. Carl, I'll reach out to you about that separately, and you can join the legislative committee with Isabel and work out the plan for the bill itself. Great, thanks. Let's proceed with the Q&A.
Yeah, I don't know how like we want to go, maybe a few more minutes of questions, so.
Yeah, we got time.
Okay, great, so I know there were a few more hands.
All right, Councilmember Zwick, there are questions from Zoom as well, if you wanted to call on anybody from there.
Yeah, I can't see that, that's great, let Leonoris ask hers and then we'll move to the Zoom.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
I have a question.
Hold on one second.
Oh, yeah, he's taking one in the room and then we're going to the Zoom.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to thank Jackie for all of your work for Safe Streets here and the Safe Routes to School program. You know, since I've got kids commuting to school, you know, I'm really concerned about what Cargo has been seeing. Like I've been seeing that too. You know, a lot of speeding, running, stop signs. You know, it's sort of like this culture of impunity around that, and you know, it's very concerning when it's, you know, when it's around kids trying to get to school. So I was, you know, thank you again for all the work you've been doing on it, but I was just wondering, you know, is there a possibility of more enforcement of that, especially during the school commute hours, you know, like in those key areas where kids are getting to school, if that's a possibility that the city could look into. And another question is, you know, could the city also look into investing in some ambassadors to help you like walk buses or bike buses, you know, to help get this kids to school safely?
I'll just restate really quickly, it was around the same question of drivers running stop signs and committing other dangerous moving violations, especially in the context of kids who are walking, biking, and otherwise getting to and from their homes and school. We have a lot of kids that do take these different modes to our schools. It's one of the things I love seeing in the morning in our community, and the question is sort of what could we do to really ensure their safety beyond what we already do.
You know, I know there was some drop-off concerns around Franklin. I think your kids made it in there, but we did work with our police to be present during the drop-offs, and we did hear back from the principals that conditions had improved, and I think we adjusted some of the loading as well. And that, I think that's helpful, but it's just not sustainable because the police cannot be there all the time. And so I think, and you know, we used to have a Safe Routes to School coordinator that could help with some of this, and we haven't had that since COVID. Staff reductions and whatnot have really reduced the amount of time that we can spend there because we don't have the resources. But I think a big change would be, you know, how do we find those parents that are willing to step up and lead these efforts? You know, have a walk route together, or you know, get kids on their bikes to ride to school. I think we have to get to the parents who are going to these schools to ask them to step up and take that role. Because we haven't had any luck saying like, you know, drive less. People need to, I think need help understanding, well, how can I do the other things? Like some more guidance and more partnerships with parents helping each other to get there. And so, you know, we talk about there's grant opportunities out there for Safe Routes to School programs where we can pilot these things. And so we talk about when those opportunities happen, how we can, you know, ask the community to participate in that grant opportunity to actually pilot it. But it would still be, it would still require, I think, members of the, you know, parents from the schools to actually run those pilots. And so we would have to have that commitment. because internally we don't have staff to do those things. So I think there's definitely hope, we just have, we have to be more creative.
I will say that that's a program and a position that I would love to see restored. And I think, some creative ideas around ways we can generate revenue for that I'd love to bring back to this club in the future.
I have a question.
Let's do that.
I don't know, Natalia, do you wanna pick some people?
Yeah. Yeah, so Sean James had been waiting a while to ask a question, and I have some from the chat that I can read out, and then we have one more hand.
Okay. First of all, thank you for all being there. I appreciate you. I completely disagree with everything every single one of you have said. I've lived and worked in Santa Monica since 1989. I actually moved to Virginia Avenue from Australia in 1989. I watched that park get made. I watched that building get made. I've watched the subway get built on 5th and Broadway. I worked at Fred Siegel there for years, hoping that that was going to be a great thing. In fact, that area that is built just doesn't even function on the weekends. You have to have a traffic guard there, go do the traffic. It's so bad. It's so badly planned and designed. I work on Wilshire Boulevard now. You've destroyed Wilshire Boulevard. I nearly got hit by a bus today. It is a terrible nightmare. The other thing is Cloverfield Boulevard now, you can't, exiting off the 10 freeway onto Cloverfield Boulevard used to be an easy thing. Now there's 2 lanes of traffic backed up on the 10 freeway just to get off on Cloverfield Boulevard because of the bottlenecking that happens on Cloverfield. So, and then for Michael from Streets for All to say that the fire department is lying is so arrogant for him to say that while he's not in the room. The fire chief, you're talking about the fire chief of Los Angeles. You're saying that he's lying about the access. How arrogant can you be? It's absolutely absurd.
I'm sorry, Sean, did you have a question or did you just have comments?
I had comments, and what are you going to do to change Wilshire Boulevard back to a functioning street? It's a disaster. You've taken away parking there. You took away 4 spots in one block.
Yeah, so
Thank you for the question. Let's let them answer, and then I'll go to the next questions. Thank you,
Well, I've been
Sean.
waiting for 3 hours to ask that question.
Thank you for being here.
So the improvements that were made on Wilshire Boulevard were in response to the fact that we have a high percentage of the vehicle and pedestrian conflicts and accidents occurring along Wilshire Boulevard. Left turns, people making left turns from unsignalized street intersections were the #1 cause of deadly and other accidents. And restricting people to turning right there has, I think, really borne out. I think we're going to follow the data, see if indeed it lowers accidents as we think it will. If it doesn't,
It's actually improved. It's making more accidents. More people are getting hit around there. And to tell you the truth, the BMW areas where you really should focus, where they're double, triple parking their cars and trucks, causing such a disaster on that street. That's the street you should have focused on, not Wilshire Boulevard.
Well, I'm with you on making sure no one's double and triple parking. So we'll look at that.
Yeah, BMW. It's a disaster around there.
Natalia?
Yeah, you should let her determine who's
next. Natalia, you can call.
Yes, so we had, let me go through 2 questions from the chat, and then we can go to Eli. The first question, I got this directly. Have vehicle codes changed? Is it legal for bicyclists to ride their bicycle on a sidewalk?
I don't believe it is, not in Santa Monica. That's a local decision. I don't think it's a vehicle code. It's just like a local law.
Right, and I think it passed in LA recently. But not in Santa Monica.
Thank you. And then another question that we had in the chat, and I think this might have been somewhat addressed, but how do we make school bike corridors a priority for the city to protect the bike lanes? For example, Pearl is highly used by SMC, SAMO, Rogers, and JAMS students and families.
Yeah, I mean, we did speak to this a little, but I will say that, you know, I do hear a lot about bike lanes being obstructed. And I know that there's something that's being piloted. It wouldn't necessarily be enforcement. Do you know what I'm speaking to, Jackie? The camera?
The automated.
Yeah, the automated camera.
I don't know too much.
I'll just say that, that there's a pilot going on with our buses where they're gonna have cameras on them, to potentially automate enforcement of the hours of the day when you're not supposed to park, on Lincoln Boulevard for the bus to be able to move, and a camera could theoretically read the license plate and send you a ticket, and it would allow those buses to move as they're supposed to. I think there's an idea of working with the same company, and I can't remember the name. Yeah, say that again, someone?
It's called Hayden AI.
Hayden AI to potentially also look at putting them on some of our traffic enforcement vehicles who can note as they're just driving by, like what the conditions are in the bike lanes. And at this point, there's no current effort to use that data to send tickets, but at least we would gather data on where the problems are and potentially be able to alleviate that problem a little bit.
And we just have one more hand raised on Zoom. Eli, would you like to ask your question, please?
This is a question for Jackie. Basically, I'm wondering, you mentioned, you know, safe routes to schools and things like that. Are there plans to make low traffic streets that would work for that? Because my kids on Montana and riding with them on a bike on Montana is treacherous at best. But some of the neighborhood streets nearby would be great, but they are highly traffic cut through streets now. I'm thinking mostly of Washington is sort of a cut through that people use instead of Wilshire or Montana, because Montana and Wilshire have signals and Washington doesn't. So are there any plans to make slow traffic streets, similar to what you did in, but also using things like traffic diverters to bring less cars on those streets?
The current plans that we're working on now in the near term around schools is really, you know, curb extensions, signal adjustments. I wouldn't categorize them as like changing the roadway to slow streets for new routes or greenways to schools, but we do have them in our plans. We do have Washington, for example, in particular. It is a greenway, neighborhood greenway, that could use a lot of treatments to reduce speeding and create a really nice biking environment. But we don't have any funding for that, and we don't have, it's a hard one to be funded as well. It's in a really nice area. We don't compete well against all the other cities in the area who are going after this money. But what I would say is, you know, we get asked a lot about Washington, and I think it would be helpful for the community to get together and propose a plan and bring it to the city, ask the city to identify resources and funding to make it happen. That's another way that plans can be elevated or promoted or prioritized within our existing plans.
That's
A quick follow-up on.
So yeah.
It sounds like a lot of these projects will require outside funding. Is there not a dedicated funding source for bike and pedestrian improvements in the city?
Not enough funding. We have what we call the transportation impact fees, our TIP funds, which we use to those are funds that are that come from developer fees. So anytime a developer is putting in a new building or a new building, some of those funds go towards mitigating traffic, which means bike and ped improvements. We rely on those funds to use for grant match funding. So anytime we apply for a grant, usually through Caltrans or Metro, they put up some amount, and then we put up usually like 20% to match that to get us to fully funded project. And so that is really the only source that we have access to tap into, and we rely on development for that to happen.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really, I mean, that's interesting to me. I didn't know, for instance, that we already have certain streets like Washington that are planned to be greenways in that way. It's in the plan, right, but is that in the vision, like, the bike plan, or what plan is that in?
Yeah, it's a long-term vision. I think it's a 20-year.
Got it. Well, no, that's really interesting. I plan to follow up with you about some of that. And yeah, I think there is a real issue, just, I think it was alluded to, that I'll just speak to a little too, where, you know, Santa Monica, these grants, the way the state designates a lot of their grant funding now is tied to a number of different factors, including, precinct level data, demographics, socioeconomic, other vulnerability factors. So part of why I think we see a little bit more improvements happening in our Pico neighborhood or elsewhere is that it's easier to get grant funding to do work in that area. It's harder to get grant funds to do work, say, in Wilmont or something. And I think that does speak to the need to have a dedicated source of local funding, or else it's going to be a lot harder to do that kind of work. So I think that's a great question. Yeah.
Denise is better.
Oh, sorry. someone-
Keep answering this question, then you can ask yours as the next one.
So Eli, that was a great thing you brought up about greenways. It's something that we've been promoting for years and years. In fact, at Santa Monica Spoke, our first project was Michigan Avenue Greenway. And we made a lot of progress in allowing that to be accessed to Salmo High. We still have ways to go, and I think this is where maybe the use of diverters can even increase the use of that area. And that came from community outreach and community advocacy. So Washington Boulevard could be a future plan for that. The more greenways, I think, the better. It would just make our city much more easy to traverse for all sorts of people.
I'll say to Michigan really fast, it's a great project. There's a lot of really great work that was done. I personally am very sad that there wasn't a diverter that was installed, because that was part of the plan originally. And to those who don't know, it's essentially a form of infrastructure that might allow a car to leave one direction, but it wouldn't allow traffic to enter. So it makes it a less desirable cut through street, and, you know, really lessens the density of cars that are using that to get through a neighborhood. If you live there, you can still get in and out via car, but it makes it much less attractive sort of street for other people to cut through in their cars. And I do think it's a tool that we should be looking to employ there and elsewhere.
Are we allowed to make this comment, or do we have to ask a question?
Got a comment? Go ahead, but you know.
Okay.
Keep it,
All right, I have a question as well. First of all, thank you all for your amazing work. You guys brought up a lot of compelling reasons for why we need alternative options. Safety. We brought up safety, so we brought up community. And another thing that I've heard from proposers of making these options better, the argument of freedom. And I just wanted to just comment on how absurd that is. I had a car accident in August, and because of the issues with insurance, I had to pay out of pocket. Basically 3 months I was without a car, and I saw very little interruption to my daily life and work life. Luckily, I mostly stay within Santa Monica for work, and I saw very little interruption in my work and daily life between the Big Blue Bus, between walking and using VO and bike share. I used to live in the San Fernando Valley, and there was a brief period as well where I was without a car, and it felt like jail. So yeah, cars are not freedom, options are freedom. And additionally, in regards to wheelchair, a couple of years ago, I used to work as a Uber Eats driver. And I remember the first time I drove through a wheelchair, I thought to myself, what the hell is this? On the unsignalized portion, I felt really unsafe. And with the changes now, yeah, they're slightly inconvenient for drivers. I mean, it's not that hard. You just turn right and then you turn. But I can see why that would be annoying to some people. I use wheelchair occasionally as a driver and as a pedestrian, so I think that's why it doesn't annoy me as much, because I'm conscious of the fact that walking there is just so much better. But I'm wondering, when you guys are considering the design for a wheelchair,
what were the reason for choosing converters as opposed to maybe making it, those unsignalized intersections, making them signalized intersections? Signalized intersection, would that have also made it safer, or was there a preference, is there a particular reason why diverged or?
I thought Jackie probably on this one.
You may want to restate that.
Oh, yeah, sorry, so, more options, more freedom, and, when it comes to, Wilshire Boulevard in particular, there's been some great work that are done, there were different courses of action whereby we could have tried to make these unsignalized intersections safer. Why did we go with what we did as opposed to say, looking at, say, adding more signals?
Thank you. So that project was really focused on safety, lights up on our Vision Zero high entry network. So it was data driven, and we analyzed those specific crashes at these locations to understand what type of movement was happening that was actually causing the crash. And so to resolve the type of movement and conflict that was happening, this treatment was put in place instead of necessarily a signal, because that signal may not have resolved the type of crash that was happening. And not only that, we do have quite a few signals already on Wilshire, and not every intersection needs a signal. Part of the different phase, I think we have 3 phases to Wilshire. The next one's coming up, we're wanting some additional signals at a couple of intersections. Maybe those are some of the ones you're talking about, but in terms of that right turn movement, it's laser focused on that type of movement that's showing up in the crash data that leads to the increase in crashes.
See one hand raised on the Zoom.
Yes, I was just gonna call on Janice to ask her question.
Hi there. How can people find out about when the next group ride, there's a group bicycle ride in Santa Monica. How can people find out when that is happening and what to expect and where to meet, et cetera, and who to contact? And maybe John, we could put that information on our club social media.
That's a good question. I think you could speak to this perhaps. I believe you participate in these, or maybe organize them. Let's see. Yeah.
I just might. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for the question. I perfectly understand your concern, and that's something I've been personally trying to work on, using social media. So hopefully you can use that so that I don't have to think about another way to do it. I do this for the city of LA, where a friend and I put together a whole calendar of all the rides, but I think what you're looking at and thinking about right now is Santa Monica, where I originally started organizing community rides, with sort of just open to anyone, any age, any ability, any kind of bike. And yeah, there's just welcoming to anyone, as long as you come with good intentions and ready to have fun and be a responsible person, then we love to have you. And I personally sort of share it on social media. I use Instagram and Twitter, and the handle I use on there is called Mobility for Who, not Who, Mobility for Who. And yeah, hopefully that's something you can easily access to.
Is there a mailing list that one can get on?
Sorry?
Is there an email list that one can get on?
There isn't, but.
I just know, I think there are also some rides promoted through a group called Santa Monica Families for Safe Streets, and I think there is a mailing list for that.
Santa Monica Spoke has a number of rides. Coming up in May, we have a Kiddical Mass Ride, which is a family ride for any kid of any age, adult to free, whatever. And so go to Santa Monica Spoke, smspoke.org, get the calendar.
We're actually very blessed in Santa Monica to have a number of advocacy groups that are doing this, between Caro and Santa Monica Spoke and Santa Monica Families for Safe Streets. It seems like we do maybe need an aggregator of all these opportunities, so we should look into that for sure.
And I don't know if there's any more questions in the room, but we have another hand raised in the Zoom.
And then, yeah.
We'll come back to Jason. Does some other people have questions? Okay, Mike.
I do think data is important. Obviously, I feel strongly about this as someone who's run down on Ocean Avenue by an SUV and a crosswalk, so, but I have a question. Has anybody looked at data whether, and I understand why we did this, but, getting rid of, making jaywalking legal in California, what impact that's had on since it looked like everything we're designing there is sort of intersection. And then my second question, going back to housing, I think what Craig was talking about is something pretty important. The city did a study about 7 or 8 years ago, which showed that only 1 in 10 people who worked in Santa Monica lived here, but even of the people who lived here, only 2 out of 10 worked in Santa Monica. There are all sorts of great reasons for living in Santa Monica beyond simply your job, and so my expectation is that it's probably our affordable housing, true affordable housing, more affordable, wealthy people housing, that is more of the people who actually work in our city. But have we done any data on that? We gather that, and certainly from a pure equity perspective, the people who are coming from the furthest distances are our hotel workers and our retail workers. Very folks who are generating most of the revenue for the city, for the TOT and sales tax. So I think when we talk about housing and sustainability, we need to be very focused on true affordable housing for lower income workers, in our city. So we have any data about this, we can't get data.
Yeah, so there are 2 parts. The first, Michael was hit by a car while walking in a crosswalk, but nonetheless, the question would have to do with people who are potentially jaywalking, which was decriminalized. Is that a statewide law? Yeah, I don't personally, I'm not sure if anyone's aware. Does anyone on this panel have data since that time?
I don't have data, and I'm probably gonna get the language wrong, but I know the bill itself stated specifically that jaywalking, which I have to mention was a concept made by the auto industry. But anyways, we legalized again last year, and the bill says specifically that it is legal as long as it is done safely. So if you just throw yourself into traffic in front of a car, that is still not legal. I don't know the data on it, but I just wanted to include that.
I'll say the like on that part.
Yeah.
And to add a little to that, I think, it's such a new change that we probably wouldn't see a difference this early on. Through our Vision Zero efforts and discussions with PD, fire, we look at that data on a quarterly basis. So I think after a couple of years, we will start to notice some trends maybe, and see if it's related to this new passing of the law.
The other half was, I think, less of a question, but about, again, people who work here being allowed to live closer to their jobs, ideally in Santa Monica, and specifically that a lot of the people who might find themselves in this predicament are on the lower end of the wage spectrum, and that when we talk about adding more housing to Santa Monica, should be definitely laser focused on making sure those all income categories, but specifically low income categories, be served by that housing.
Okay, last question goes to Jason.
He's on a Zoom.
Hey, so we've been talking about the Ben Allen speed camera bill, and the enforcement cameras, like the AI enforced cameras on the buses, for example. But like, has anybody been talking to like either the police or the park gig enforcement about actually enforcing license plate laws? Because the cameras aren't going to do anything if you don't have a license plate visible, right? And I've seen cars driving around with no plates, dealer inserts instead of the license plates. obstructed plates, like 3-year expired paper plates. And from like talking with individual parking officers, like they are just not interested in writing tickets for this. Even if it's just stuff that they come across while doing other parking enforcement, they see somebody with a plate, with a missing plate, like they just don't want to write the ticket. And that seems like it's gonna undermine the camera enforcement if we can't, like, so, right, so it's one thing to say like, okay, you don't want like an armed officer pulling somebody over for a missing plate, because now it's an armed officer interaction that we're trying to avoid, but there's no human interaction to just stick a ticket on a car that you come across parked.
We've talked about how in recent months, in response to council action that I brought, DOT is now meeting on a regular cadence with police and parking, I believe, to try to coordinate on areas that they've identified to be important. I don't know anything specific about whether that's been raised as an important issue, but I agree that it is one, especially if we're going to be relying on more automated forms of enforcement. I don't know if Jackie even more to add to that.
I can bring it up to Jason, our mobility manager, and ask him if. So I don't know if that conversation is happening, this specific topic is happening, but I'm happy to bring it up to our mobility manager to ask PD and their regular check-ins. Thanks.
Right, thank you.
Just to highlight innovation in Santa Monica, there's actually a Santa Monica-based technology company called Metropolis that is automating parking for parking garages, getting rid of the ticket machines and gates. And they do that in part by using license plate readers, but they actually have artificial intelligence that can help identify this specific car, even if it doesn't have a visible license plate. So, and shameless plug, it's one of my portfolio companies I've invested in. So, but anyway, there's cool stuff happening in the city.
I think we've done a good 2 hours here, so I want to thank, or maybe not close. I want to thank all the panelists for taking the time and these questions. Jackie, we took extra time after her job already for the city, and everyone else on this panel. Thank you so much for your thoughts and wisdom, and thank you to Michael for leave early. And thank you to everyone for showing up and sticking it out. I'm heartened to see so many people in the community that care about this issue. So thank you.
All right.
And also let's thank Councilmember Swift for moderating the panel. So just a reminder, next month, March 27th will be our next meeting right here, Senator Ben Allen. Don't forget to vote by Tuesday. We'll have some more GOTV opportunities in our email tomorrow with the link to this meeting. Thanks so much, everybody. We're adjourned. And if you're interested in some more GOTV opportunities, Susan's gonna bring them up right now. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, before you leave, if anyone wants Adam Schiff sign or a Joe Biden sign, I have, so just hit me up, either for your car or for your window or whatever. And I also wanted to let everyone know that there are some statewide and local phone banks for getting out the vote. Because our abysmal voting rate right now is about 5% in Los Angeles County. We really need to get that out. Anyway, just be looking, look for the link in the newsletter. Thank you.
Really, Prime Minister Steve,
yeah.
Now, since then, more or less.
Bye.
Was fired.